Well, I've had the pleasure for 16 years to be the film director for the Cincinnati Bengals. And during those years, I got the opportunity to meet a number of their players, and one of them is our next guest. And he's quite a guy. I'd like to tell you a little bit about him. He's the first Bengal who was ever drafted, the Bengals' first and only team captain for all of his 12 playing years. He was a starting center in each of 234 games from 1968 through 1979. Previously, he had been an All-American at Tennessee, and throughout his career, he was a member of the Fellowship of Christian Athletes. The Bengals retired his jersey, good old number 54, in honor of one of those players who exemplified all of what's good in professional sports. By now, of course, I know that you know I'm talking about Bob Johnson. Bob is now president of a fine Cincinnati company called Imperial Adhesives. Bob, it's nice to have you on our show.
Oh, I'm glad you just said the good things and left out all the bad things you know about me.
Well, I didn't tell about your tennis scores. Is there life after football?
Oh, yeah, and I think in a lot of ways it's a lot more fun than football is. Well, for the last 10 years I played, maybe 1969 to 1979, I worked for Imperial Adhesives in the off-season. The nice thing about professional football, maybe compared to baseball, is that you have a nice, clean 6.5 month, if you're not in the Super Bowl, which we weren't frequently. If you're not well into the playoffs, you have a nice 6.5 month segment that you can work somewhere else. And so for me, there was a real nice transition as I stopped playing football into maybe a more significant job than other players who didn't work in the off season. It's tough to start all over, I think, but if you would work in the off season, that transition's pretty nice.
Tell us about Imperial Adhesives. What does your company do?
Imperial makes industrial adhesives, sells kind of nationwide. We make waterborne adhesives that may go from a rubber base that comes out of a rubber tree in Malaysia to polyvinyl acetate that would be like an Elmer's glue base. So a whole series of water-based adhesives, and then a whole series of solvent-based adhesives that may be like contact cements that you might use around your house. And then we would go into a totally 100% solids thermoplastic system that is meltable and is usually used in the packaging carton closing industry. So we would sell a broad range of adhesives, but only to industry, not any consumer goods. And the industries we would serve would go from, we started in the footwear business. Shoes for the most part are almost totally glued together these days, to the automotive industry, furniture, packaging, a broad range of product assembly.
With that range of customers, you probably have some here in Dayton.
Oh, we've got a number. Dayton, as a lot of your viewers would know, has a lot of roots in automotive production. A lot of it is sub-assembly, maybe not the direct assembly of the car, and maybe not directly to the big automotive manufacturers, but we sell a lot to automotive sub-assemblers in the Dayton area. But then there's a number of customers in the Dayton area that do a variety of, again, product assembly kind of operations. There's some kitchen countertop manufacturers here. Dayton has a real diverse industrial base that we'd like to sell more to.
Well, good. I hope this helps.
It probably will.
What about the history of the company? How did Imperial Adhesives emerge as a company?
Well, Imperial was started by U.S. Shoe, a major shoe manufacturer based in Cincinnati in 1960, and it really was because U.S. Shoe was in their manufacture of mostly women's footwear, consumed a lot of adhesives, and then as a vertical integration started Imperial in 1960. But about 1970 we began to branch out and sell other industries. In 1983, principally the management of Imperial convinced U.S. Shoe to sell it to us, and in a classic leverage buyout we bought it, I guess in 1983. We formed a board of directors and invited a fellow named Cliff Borland, who's the president of Newport Steel. And I don't know how well in Dayton the story would be known, but it's been written in Reader's Digest and a number of things. Newport Steel was another management leverage buyout of a closed factory. Interlake Steel, in I guess 1980, closed what was a big employer in Newport, right across the river from Cincinnati. 1,500 employees, high average hourly wage. closed the plant, and Cliff and a couple of his management people reopened the plant with some interesting state financing out of Kentucky, and now employ about 700 people making pipe. Anyway, it was a neat story. He's a neat guy. We invited him to be on our board when we bought the company, and after he listened to our stuff for a year and a half, made us an offer, and we sold to Newport Steel and now operate as a division of Newport Steel.
Well, Bob, it occurs to me that probably some of our Enterprise viewers out there have had an experience similar to yours, a sudden career change, either because they planned it or because of reasons beyond their control. What advice would you have for them?
Well, I think sometimes in people looking at their careers, and especially in a career change, end up being very self-centered. It's sort of natural. You look at, oh, I need to make a change, or I'm forced to make a change, and what am I going to do? And I think maybe this starts with football, but I think more so in business, people need to think teamwork, and they need to look at a company that they may be going to join in this career change. They need to understand what that company's trying to do, and maybe the market niche that that company serves, and how can I, in this new career, stepping into this new company, how can I help them be totally successful? Because that's what the management of the company is certainly looking for, employees that are going to help them as a total part be successful. And if they can step back and maybe step away from their particular little piece of the company and understand how their department or their segment of the company services the whole company so that the entire company can be successful. It's really not unlike teamwork in football. It's how can I help the whole team go forward? And this lack of selfishness out of an employee is tremendously important. And I think as people worry about their own little sphere of influence, it hurts them as an employee. So I think if you're going to change careers, you need to look at that company you're going to go with and ask yourself, how can I help them be successful in an overall sense?
I think very good advice. Bob, thank you very much for being our guest here on Enterprise.
Thanks, Glenn.
We'll be back in a moment with our final Enterprise feature for tonight. The story of another company whose product line makes a dramatic impact on the quality of many products which we use in our daily lives.